Hi, I'm the Sad Panda, and this is going to be the 6th episode of my series, I Read This, Should You?, where I give you a review on a book, manga, or web novel that I've read, and you decide whether or not to read it. Of course, I'll only touch on the first 100 chapters or so to not spoil everything, but this one's going to be a little different because it's on a manga that doesn't even have 100 chapters, so I'm just going to explain about the beginning, the world a little bit, Mash as a character, and we'll get on from there. This episode's going to be on Mashel, Magic and Muscle by Hajime Komodo. In short, it's a story about a young boy named Mash who is born without any magic in a world where magic is literally everything. Like Mash's grandpa, I'll talk about him when we get into it more, but Mash's grandpa, his magic is so weak that he might as well not even have magic. He contemplates suicide in the earlier parts of the story because everyone hates him so much he can't get a job anywhere because he doesn't have enough magic. Now, in this world, most people, almost everyone, are born with something that is a magic like line on their face that it doesn't always, it's not always in the same spot. It might be on their right side, their left side. It might be just like across their forehead, down to their cheek, and it doesn't matter. But almost everyone is born with this magic line or multiple lines to show how powerful they are. Now, Mash is born without a magic line, and he's left as a baby pretty much to die because in this world, if you don't have magic, it's a crime. It's an actual crime. You can, like, as babies, they put to death babies that have no magic line because they have no purpose in the society that it is. Now, this is a comedy story, by the way. Hello. But Mash is born with no magic at all. And he's found by his grandpa, who is like about to jump off a roof, and he finds this baby and he's like, oh, you have no magic, I have no magic, I'm just gonna raise you because this world is too cruel. And so he raises Mash to like be just powerful in the body. Like he just like trains him, works out and stuff like that. So the story takes place after Mash is like 16, 17 or whatever, and he's working out in the forest doing like a set of like 1,000 bench presses with like a ton of weight because he's literally a god. He's so strong that when he Mash doesn't have great EQ, which is emotional intelligence. He's very short-sighted, I guess. I mean, he understands when people like, he understands that his grandpa loves him, and he understands that, like, he doesn't have magic. He knows these things, but he doesn't understand the ramifications that he doesn't have magic, because in the first couple chapters, his grandpa's like, you can't leave. Like, you can't leave the forest that we live in. Like, I'll go into town and get food and stuff. And his grandpa was, like, out, like, fishing or something, and he's like, I want to go get some cream puffs. So he just walks into town without any magic lines or anything, and a police officer, it's like, you have no magic. I have to take you to jail. You have no magic. And as it is a comedy, Mash is like, I'm not gonna go to jail. That's not what I want to do. So he just pantses the cop and leaves because he's so fast that he just like pantses him like immediately and then runs away. But they eventually track him back to his grandparents' house or his grandpa's house, and they put the squeeze on his grandpa, and he pops up, and this guy, the police use magic against Mash, and he just like slaps it away with his hands. Like he just doesn't care. Bam, like slaps it away, breaks, like catches the dude's wand and like throws it back like a needle, and like it like almost kills the guy. Like Mash versus like magic users, it's no contest. He's so strong, it's crazy. But eventually he gets an ultimatum where it's like, either you prove that you don't need magic, you prove that the world doesn't need magic, and you become a divine visionary. So you go to this school and you have to become like one of the top students and then become a divine visionary, or I'm gonna kill your grandpa. And Mash is like, okay. He's like, I'll do it, whatever. He's like, you need magic to become a divine visionary. He's like, no, I'll do it, it's fine. And so they paint like a line on his face, and he attempts to go into a magic school with no magic. Going into this school, he eventually, there's a trial to get into the school where you have to like go through like a maze and use your magic to like find the path or whatever. And you only have a set amount of time. And this girl is like, hey, I'm also have to do this. Do you want to like work together or whatever? And he's like, sure. And then it turns out that she was told by one of like the teachers that if she stops Mash from getting in, because like one of the teachers could tell that he doesn't belong there, that he's like a country bumpkin or something, and he's like, he doesn't belong here, so if you keep him from getting in, I'll let you get in without having to pass the thing. So she was like, okay. And it turns out that they were lying to her. Obviously they thought that she didn't deserve to be in either, so the idea was that they both don't get in. Mash, like after she tells him that, like we only have like a minute left and we can't get out of this maze in time, I'm sorry, I didn't know that they didn't want me in either or whatever. And he's like, no, I care, I need you, so let's go. And she takes that the complete wrong way. Like she says like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm a burden. And he's like, oh no, you're not a burden, because like he's so strong that it literally she physically isn't a burden to him, but she thinks that because she thinks she was talking emotionally, she's a burden, and he says she's not a burden, so she thinks that he likes her. And then this whole story, for the rest of the story, she literally treats him as her husband. It's the funniest stuff ever. But the way they get out of the maze, instead of like going through the maze and figuring out a path, Mash just punches through like the maze straight through, and he's like, all right, we made it in time. And that's just how it happens. I just can't get enough of it, honestly. The story is so good, and this one's gonna be probably on the shorter end, the videos that I make, but that's here and far between. We still got a little bit to go over because I don't want to explain everything. But after they go through the maze, he has to talk to like the head professor or whatever, the master of the school, and he's like, and he talks about, because obviously he can tell right away. He's like the headmaster. He knows that Mash doesn't have magic. So he's like, what do you do when you're faced with an overwhelming force that you can't stop? And like, so, and then he tests him with like an insane magic like spell that he can cast and attacks Mash. Like doesn't attack him, but like puts pressure on Mash, and Mash like catches like this giant sword with his like bare hand, so it's obviously cut through, and he's like bleeding, and he's like, I would punch you in the face. Like I would punch you in the face. That's exactly what he says, because that's his go-to whenever someone like threatens him with magic. He's like, well, I'm just gonna punch you, and I've never met anybody that I can't punch. And that's his whole thing. And I just love the comedy aspect of Mash, because like the way he deals with magic is way different than how like other magic users deal with magic. When Mash gets faced with overwhelming force, like I'm gonna explain a fight, but I'm not gonna tell who it's between, because it's like later in the chapters, like 50 or so. But he's faced with a guy that can use sound, and he can travel at the speed of sound, because that's his magic, it's sound magic. So eventually, like if he goes like to his like maximum level or whatever, he can travel at the speed of sound. Mash is able to dodge with his reflexes, able to dodge this guy moving at the speed of sound by touching the walls and the ground and hearing or feeling the sound before he hears it, because sound travels different speeds and different matters. So it's the fastest in liquids and solids, and it's slower in the air because there's less molecules to interact with. So he's like touching the wall, and he's able to dodge this guy moving at the speed of sound, and punches him in the face. He punches him in the face. He lets him have it. Like it's honestly a wonderful story. It's very funny. I believe it's a comedy shonen. I don't know if it's classified exactly as shonen, because it doesn't have like the like level up elements, like the power up elements, or like the power of friendship stuff. It's more of like a One Punch Man kind of thing. So it might be a comedy seinen, because that's kind of what One Punch Man is. Like it's hard to know for sure. I mean, it is on Viz, so obviously I think it's on Shonen Jump too, so it's probably a shonen. That makes sense. But Mash ends up doing, like, there's a tournament arc or whatever, and he ends up becoming, like, getting these, like, gold shards that if you get enough of them, you can get a gold coin, which if you get enough of those gold coins, you can become a divine visionary. So he has to do that. and it is just a fun time. Honestly, I give the story like, I give the story like an 8 out of 10. 8.5, 8.5. Yeah, 8.5 out of 10. Because I just wish that there was more. That's like my issue right now. I just want more. And I don't know how this arc is going to conclude, and I don't know who like the big bad is quite yet, because there's usually in these kind of stories there's like a main villain, and I don't know who it is yet. Like, the story is pretty new. I'm excited for what is to come, and that's pretty much it. But I want to thank everyone for subscribing. Please continue to comment, like, and subscribe. Thank you for understanding with my issue on my last video with the crackle. I do know what it was. I was fidgeting with a thing on my little stand here, and that ends. I fidget a lot. I talk with my hands, if you didn't notice. So I didn't have a way to like stop my hands from moving. So right now I'm like grabbing stuff and putting it back down and try not to be loud. So apologies for that, but thank you for understanding, and I will post another video. I'm putting off doing the manga that is my favorite. It's so long, it's so good, but I don't want to give a bad review on it, you know, because this review is my first foray into mangas, so I want to know how you think of that. But the manga I want to go over, I don't want to go over just the beginning, because the beginning is not the best part of it, if I'm going to be honest. I mean, there's a lot of really sad arcs in it, and I've never cried more in a manga in my life, but we'll get there when we get there. I want to thank you again, and this will be it.